Hi, so this is Natalie Scott, and today I'm going to be giving my policy proposal. So, the policy that I am proposing is based on the improvement for facilities in Baltimore City schools. So, to start out, education is the foundation for America's youth. It allows for any aspect of their future and promise, and it's really key and important that minors receive the education they need and deserve in order to ensure success in their life. However, in Baltimore City, schools are currently failing their students as they consistently fall behind the state's benchmarks and desired proficiency levels. So, why Baltimore City? Because Maryland's, as a state, their reading and writing scores typically are high above the national average. So then why are Baltimore cities falling specifically significantly below? This is really important to examine because it means it's a problem specific to this region. So why are these schools failing students? The main reason that I discovered with my research is that these schools are lacking adequate facilities in order to provide a proper learning environment that's going to ensure the success of their students. And there's a lot of studies that look at the correlation between a positive learning environment and the success of students. And in a study published by Pennsylvania State University, without adequate facilities and resources, it's extremely difficult to serve large numbers of children with complex needs, and they're not able to focus on their schoolwork because their basic needs are not being met. So, in order to combat this problem and them consistently falling under proficiency levels, them graduating and not being able to perform at the rate they should be able to perform based on a public school education. There should be minimum standards for facilities within each school. What I mean by that is that every school should be required to have centralized air conditioning because a lot of schools don't, and it, as I'll get into later, proceeds to a lot of problems. And if they were able to have air conditioning, it would not only increase the learning environments that they're in, but it would also just allow for a higher productivity rate, and it would decrease the amount of school closures that they have to have. And so with that, students will be able to experience the learning environment they deserve, and then it will further lead to an improvement in the academic success of all Baltimore City public students. So that's just a brief introduction and overview of what I'm going to be discussing today, but now I'm going to get more in depth with the policy and first address the ill. So, as I've kind of mentioned earlier, what is the problem here? The problem is that Baltimore City public students are not able to achieve academic success. And according to an article published in The Hill, Frederick Douglass High School, a Baltimore City public school, despite having a graduation rate of 87%, only had one student in their graduating class that could demonstrate proficiency in math, which is just completely unacceptable. And another article published by the Baltimore Sun, only 13% of 8th grade students are considered proficient in reading, which is once again not acceptable. Finally, in a study published by Project Baltimore, found that one high school had a 0% for proficiency in math, which once again is just unacceptable and clearly shows that these schools are not demonstrating, that they are creating an active learning environment because none of their students are able to perform at a basic proficiency level. So now we've clearly seen that there is a problem present because Baltimore City school students are clearly not achieving academic success. So why is that? After a lot of research, as I mentioned, I found that in my observance of facilities in Baltimore City schools, they clearly demonstrated their unacceptability and inability to create an effective learning environment. So, according to a study published in Virginia Tech, researchers repeatedly found a 5 to 17% percentile point difference between the achievement of students in poor buildings and those in a standard building. This research specifically addressed the importance of thermal air quality in up-to-date structures. In addition to this external research, Baltimore City schools have missed 1.5 million hours in class in the past 5 years alone, due to poor facilities. And In this urban area, public schools lack clean drinking water, adequate heating and cooling systems, technology, and roofs that protect from weathering. These clearly all demonstrate that the facilities in Baltimore City are not good. But specifically, the problem that I noticed was consistent was the lack of cooling systems, meaning that a lot of schools do not have centralized air conditioning, and it's creating a huge problem. So, in order to help solve this, I propose that each school in Baltimore City should be required to have centralized air conditioning. This is going to allow for the improvement in so many aspects of schools, and I'm so positive that it will lead to a positive correlation in test scores and proficiency levels achieved. So, just kind of to elaborate on this a little bit, as I've said, many schools really lack adequate heating and cooling systems. 57 Baltimore County public schools, or Baltimore City public schools, don't have air conditioning, which is just unacceptable. And in addition to that, there has been so many school closures caused by these. In an article published by the Baltimore Sun, it revealed that 80% of school closures were due to inadequate cooling of students. So that's just unacceptable in and of itself. Clearly shows that this is creating an obstacle for a learning environment. And then also a lot of Baltimore City teachers have advocated that despite school closures, it's extremely difficult to learn when you're sweaty and tired, and it's just creating an environment where academic success is just simply not possible. So, why will this work? Implementing a centralized air conditioning system will allow for students to be able to attend more days of school, as it will decrease the amount of closures they have, therefore increasing learning outcomes. You can see a direct correlation. Obviously, if they attend more days of school, they're going to be able to learn more in the classroom and perform at a higher level of proficiency. In addition to that, it's going to create a comfortable learning environment where students are able to focus on their needs because their basic levels, or where people are going to be able to focus on their studies because their basic levels of needs have been met. They're not going to be focused on being uncomfortable in the class and sweating. In addition to this, it will allow students to then reach their academic potential fully. As I've said many times, studies have illustrated a positive correlation between a comfortable learning environment and academic performance. So with the installation of air conditioning systems in the 57 schools that currently lack air conditioning, we'll most likely see a positive increase or a positive correlation in academic performance. So obviously with the installation of these air conditioning systems, a common or desired consequence would be positive correlation in test scores, higher proficiency levels, and stuff like that for all the reasons I've demonstrated. But it's also going to be really important to look at the possible negative consequences that could be associated with this. So clearly, this is going to require a large sum of money. In a recent study published, the governor of Maryland revealed that it would probably cost roughly $30 million to implement centralized air conditioning in the remaining 57 city schools. So clearly, in order to get this money, naturally, what I would personally recommend is increasing tax revenue. So increasing the income tax in Maryland would be a really easy way to kind of create that money. So obviously it's going to be really important to look at how to install these over a period of time. So I've created an installation timeline. So there are 57, as I've said, Baltimore City Public Schools without air conditioning. So what I recommend is that we do this as soon as possible so less students can fall behind. So what I recommend is doing this also when schools are not in session, because it would just disrupt learning environments even further if there was construction going on. So starting these in summer of 2021 and winter break of 2021. So do 5 schools on the winter break, 10 schools during the summer break. This would roughly take 4 years to do. So in conclusion, while there are many possible reasons why Baltimore City schools are falling below proficiency levels, there's a clear demonstration of lack of adequate facilities for a good learning environment, and therefore it's very clear that this needs to be improved, and in order to do so, we need to install proper cooling systems in Baltimore City schools.